What's up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Chief Zone podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugian, and we are back. Third day in a row of podcasting. What off season? There's no off season. Who the hell ever invented that word in the context of the NFL? That word's a joke. But here we are. Talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. It has been a busy day for the Chiefs. A lot to get into today. The Chiefs unexpectedly used the franchise tag on right guard Trey Smith. What numbers do you need to know pertaining to this? And what could be the reason why the Chiefs did this? Why did they use the franchise tag when we were told otherwise? What does this mean for guys like Nick Bolton and Justin Reed? Travis Kelce, his return is officially official. So go ahead and put him on your fantasy football team if you so choose, or any bets you want to make for the 2025 season. And the stadium situation involving the Chiefs and Royals. Once again, we have an update on that. The stories on that have been pretty hot lately. I mean, after a very quiet, 5-6 months, that story has been nothing but just rapid fire lately. We've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, all of those topics I just mentioned and much more here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I see all of you guys tuning in, watching live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you all. If you guys haven't done so, please give it a like, share the links, let your friends know that we are live right now. And for those of you listening on the audio version, greatly appreciate all of you guys as well. Please share the links with your friends. Let them know about the podcast. It has already been an insane week. There's a reason why we're doing 3 days in a row of nonstop podcasting. There's a lot to get into, so little time to waste. Let's jump right into it here as the breaking news today. In fact, it's the biggest story today involving NFL free agency with veteran players and current players expected to hit free agency. Trey Smith will not be hitting free agency this year, that is for sure, after the Chiefs used the franchise tag on him. The franchise tag is set at $23.4 million for Trey Smith on a one-year deal. Obviously not signed yet. Still needs to be signed. Obviously, a lot can happen before that. We were told the Chiefs would not use the franchise tag this offseason. So what happened? Why are we in this situation right now? Well, this news did come very shortly after the league announced that the 2025 salary cap would be $279.2 million, which is a $24 million jump from the season before. But why use the tag on Trey Smith? Because if the salary cap increase is there, why wouldn't you re-sign him? Because there was a lot of optimism in the last 48 hours. Reports coming out from Diana Rossini, Nate Taylor, Jordan Schultz, who has been in the news lately. They've all been saying positive things about how the Chiefs are looking to get this done. And even after the franchise tag was used today, a lot of reports out there from some of the guys I mentioned, Rossini, Schultz, basically giving the impression that the Chiefs are pretty optimistic and they're motivated to get a long-term deal done with Trey Smith. My guess as to why they use the franchise tag, they maybe felt like they needed more time to negotiate in order to pull off a long-term deal with Trey Smith. And in order to be able to do that, you have to restructure some contracts on the team right now. Potential restructure candidates obviously include Patrick Mahomes, a big name that a lot of people are looking at, Jawan Taylor, perhaps Travis Kelce, who is officially coming back. And we'll get into that a little later on. Chris Jones, could he be a guy that restructures? I mean, he just got a big deal last year. I don't know. I mean, that'd be a little bit of a surprise there. Creed Humphrey just got a massive deal last year, becoming the highest paid center in NFL history. Could he be somebody who restructures the contract? Joe Thuney, maybe you don't restructure him, but could you extend him before free agency begins? That can certainly help. He turns 33 in November, and I know what a lot of you guys are going to say. 33 is quite old, especially for an offensive lineman. Yeah, sure. But at this moment right now, Joe Thuney is not showing any signs of slowing down and is an elite offensive lineman when playing at his natural guard spot. So if he continues to play at a high level, and maybe you make that distinction before free agency even begins, maybe before the new league year even begins, maybe you extend Joe Thuney, and that can certainly help free up some cap space for this offseason. Because here's something you need to know in terms of numbers when it comes to the highest paid guards by average annual salary. And this came from Diana Rossini. Landon Dickerson of the Eagles, their left guard making $21 million a year on average. Chris Lindstrom on the playing right guard, $20.5 million. Robert Hunt at $20 million. And Quentin Nelson, I believe the left guard, getting $20 million per year on average. Listen, obviously, the big reason why you do this, why you don't let Trey Smith hit free agency, you got to keep him before the deadline's up. You got to keep good offensive linemen on this team. When you have your quarterback, when you have your franchise quarterback, and when that quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, the next most important thing is to make sure he always has a good offensive line. He's had some great offensive linemen, and he's had some bad offensive linemen. There hasn't really been any in between, especially ever since 2020 when they let Eric Fisher go. They let Mitchell Schwartz go. The offensive tackle position has not been very good, especially at the left tackle spot. Well, really both left and right tackle, but the left tackle spot is the one that gets talked about the most. You have to keep the interior offensive line intact. When you have Joe Thuney at his natural left guard spot, when Creed Humphrey's your center, who you extended last year, right before the third preseason game, when you have Trey Smith at right guard, you easily, without question, have the most dangerous interior offensive line in all of football. Name me an interior offensive line, left guard, right guard, center, better than those three right there. You're not going to find a better interior offensive line trio than those three guys right there. It'd be silly to let Trey Smith walk or risk not using the tag and having him hit free agency. You just don't do that if you're Brett Veach. And of course, we saw what happened in the Super Bowl, the problems with the offensive line. It wasn't just the offensive line, but it was a big part of it, especially on the left side. Listen, I felt like Joe Thuney did a great job at the left tackle spot in the regular season in the 3 to 4 games where he was playing the left tackle spot. I actually thought Mike Caliendo did just fine. And again, I'm not saying Mike Caliendo was a top 5 left guard in the weeks he played, but it was good enough to get you through the regular season. And all things considered, he was an undrafted guy. The guy had never started a game at left guard before, if I'm not mistaken, or started ever in his career. So I thought he did well, all things considered. When it came to playoff time against the Texans, you saw some issues, specifically with Danielle Hunter. The left side of the offensive line had their struggles then, certainly had some struggles against the Buffalo Bills in the second half. And we saw what we saw in the Super Bowl, of course. So keeping Trey Smith, moving Joe Thuney back to his left guard spot, I think is a big starting step. Step 2, find a damn left tackle. I don't know who that's going to be. And I'll put in some names in a moment here. But everyone they've drafted, signed, traded for since they cut Eric Fisher has not worked. Orlando Brown, Donovan Smith, Wanye Morris, Kingsley Suamataia. I mean, your best left tackle since you cut Eric Fisher was Joe Thuney. I mean, that's nice, but that's far from ideal. Far from ideal. Veach did emphasize in his press conference on Tuesday and in the myriad of interviews that he's been doing this week with the media, a lot of the national media that's out there for the NFL Combine, there is a strong emphasis on getting good players at the line, both offensively and defensively. And surely that has to include left tackle. Tooney obviously needs to move back to left guard, and the Chiefs need a true left tackle. Now, I don't know what. Listen, I'll throw this out there, and I'm giving this a 1% chance of being likely. What are the odds that the Chiefs would give Kingsley Suamataia a second chance? I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. Like I said, I'm giving that a 1% chance. But you have to throw that option out there on the table. I'm sure it's been, at the very least, just been brought up where you could give Morris or Suamataia one more chance. But I don't think they're going to go that route. Is there a possibility they draft someone this year? Yeah, that's certainly on the table. Now, their draft history at left tackle has not been good. The criticism surrounding Brett Veach has been that he can't draft wide receivers. I mean, listen, McCole Hardman, I get it. He was drafted before DK Metcalf, but DK Metcalf had character issues, and that was also right at the same time where the Tyreek Hill thing was going on, and surely it did not help the optics because they traded for Frank Clark, and he had a little bit of a past with domestic violence. But when you just look at the Chiefs, I mean, wide receiver, okay, McCole Hardman he was fine the first year and a half. After that, he's been fairly quiet. The only big thing significantly you think of with McCole Hardman in a positive manner was the touchdown catch in overtime last year, the Super Bowl. Outside of that, you really just don't see much of McCole Hardman. You really don't. It wouldn't surprise me if they brought him back for a cheap price just for depth purposes. But they have drafted pretty well at the wide receiver spot lately. They got Rashee Rice last year. They got Xavier Worthy this year in the first round. Both of them were the Mackley Hill recipients, which is the Team Rookie of the Year award. So I would say that Brett Veach is doing just fine when it comes to trying to bring in good wide receivers on this football team. It's been the left tackle spot where Brett Veach has certainly missed on the most. Not just with the draft, but free agency, trades, whatever. It just hasn't panned out the way you want it to. And I still think that that there is an option there. Yeah, I forgot to mention, Joshua mentions DJ Humphries. Humphries certainly is out there. He's a free agent right now. The two games he played certainly didn't look good. The first game he played was against the Chargers in that Sunday night football game. He looked like a guy that was on the shelf for all of 2024, which is exactly had been the case while he was recovering from his surgery there. And then when he played against the Denver Broncos, he didn't play many snaps because obviously that was a preseason game for Kansas City. They put Kingsley Suamataia at left guard. They had Ethan Driscoll line up at tight end and run a route into the safeties. Like the Chiefs were not looking to do anything serious in that game there. If anything, they were just trying to have fun with some of their play calls, I suppose. Especially when you have your right tackle who hasn't played all year run a route into the secondary. Like, come on. But yeah, Suamataia played a little bit of left guard there. When Humphries was at left tackle in that game, he didn't do very well. Not well at all. And by the way, that was a good test for Humphries because the Broncos, as a unit, they led the NFL in sacks. And that was a great test for Humphries to see how he would do against a top-tier defensive pass rush. Didn't do well. Did not pass the eye test. As far as potential left tackles out there, I mean, you guys mentioned DJ Humphries. He's certainly available. As far as non-Chiefs, Baltimore's Ronnie Stanley, the Rams' Lamar Jackson, Minnesota's Cam Robinson, and Dan Moore from the Pittsburgh Steelers are certainly some guys that the Chiefs can consider. I would imagine one of those four guys, at least, is someone that the Chiefs are interested in and will be in contact with their agents very soon once the negotiating period opens up. So that is the situation involving Trey Smith and the franchise tag there, and really the domino effect of what it can mean for the left tackle spot. But what about Nick Bolton? What does the franchise tag being used on Trey Smith mean for Nick Bolton? Because he was also really the only other serious candidate for receiving the franchise tag. What about Justin Reed? Now, I don't think Justin Reed was a franchise tag candidate to begin with, but does this hurt your chances of trying to bring him back, especially with the amount of money that you could be paying Trey Smith, even before giving him a deal, just with the franchise tag alone? I mean, that's a hefty $23 million deal there, north of $23 million. Look, I've said this many times, and I acknowledge there are a lot of Mizzou fans here. And by the way, Mizzou basketball looking really damn good. I don't say this with any pleasure. I don't say this to just rub it in your face and say, well, that's just how life is. But the reality is, you can't keep everyone. And the problem is, I've said this millions of times, the Chiefs have been drafting so damn well for so many years. Obviously, haven't gotten it right every single time, but man, they've hit a lot of home runs here in and outside of the first round. And it's been going on for years, even before John Dorsey was let go as the general manager of the team. I mean, the Chiefs have certainly been doing a great job finding guys outside of the first round. Really, since the entire Andy Reid era. Travis Kelce was a third-round pick. Chris Jones and Tyreek Hill, they were both from the same draft class. The Chiefs actually traded out of the first round. They got Chris Jones early in the second, if I recall correctly, and then they got Tyreek Hill on day 3 of the draft in the 5th round. You look at guys like Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Nick Bolton, names I've already mentioned on tonight's podcast. Those guys were all non-first round draft picks. Bolton and Humphrey, they were both second round picks. Smith was a 6th round pick. Obviously, playing for a very small price tag these last 4 years, considering he was a 6th round pick. I mean, what he's going to make in his first year will be more than his first 4 years combined and more. Obviously, 2022 was a successful draft. I mean, that crew knows nothing but Super Bowl appearances at the very least. We're talking about McDuffie, Karlaftis, Pacheco, Watson, Williams. I mean, gosh, I'm sure there are names I'm forgetting. Brian Cook. I mean, you have a lot of great guys on that list there. Sky Moore. I mean, he's had somewhat minimal involvement, at least in that postseason as a rookie, with that big punt return against the Bengals, and then 2 weeks later, a touchdown catch on the corn dog play there. But I'm telling you right now, if you think this offseason is going to be difficult with some fan favorites possibly leaving, like Nick Bolton and Justin Reed, next year is going to be a lot more difficult because, and we'll see what the Chiefs do with the 5th-year option. The deadline for that is later this offseason. I mean, how do you keep McDuffie and Karlaftis? How do you give both of those guys long-term deals? I mean, that is going to be really difficult to do. So if you, I mean, listen, man, I get it. We get attached to these guys, especially with as great as this dynasty has been. I mean, sure, they got blown out in that Super Bowl, was not a good showing at all, but this team's not going away anytime soon. And I think keeping Trey Smith plays a big part in that. And by the way, we don't know if they're going to bring back Hollywood Brown. We don't know if they're going to bring back DeAndre Hopkins. There's going to be a lot of this has been the only thing the Chiefs have done. And I understand the fact that the Chiefs keep playing into early February every year. The turnaround from February to the combine, I mean, that is a very fast 2-week turnaround for the Chiefs. I acknowledge that for sure. But they have not done anything. This is the only thing that the Chiefs have done this offseason, and that is using the franchise tag on Trey Smith. Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, I hate to say it, I'm a big fan of Nick Bolton and what he does against the run. Justin Reed, I think, is an underrated safety. They might have played their last games with the Chiefs. I mean, look at L'Jarius Sneed. It was either him or Chris Jones last year, and the Chiefs made their decision. And they traded Sneed, ended up being the right move because Sneed got hurt, and they got a very high 3rd-round pick out of that. Tyreek Hill, I mean, your wide receiver position has been far from great. We all know that. But the Chiefs have reached the Super Bowl every single year without Tyreek Hill. And what about the Dolphins? I mean, they have not won a single playoff game with Tyreek Hill. So I think we all know who won that trade. Tyrann Mathieu, another good example. They didn't trade Tyrann Mathieu. They let him walk, and he ended up going to the Saints, and he's still playing at a very high level there. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. And realistically, I don't expect Nick Bolton to be back. And I think one big reason why is that they have Drew Tranquill on a very team-friendly contract. He signed a 3-year deal last year. I can't remember the exact numbers. I want to say it was around a $13 million deal last year. I'll look that up real quickly. But it was a 3-year deal, $19 million. That's what it was. $12.5 million guaranteed. So, yeah, I mean, that is a very good deal for the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think that really did spell the end of Nick Bolton there. Again, I know people don't want to hear it, especially a lot of Mizzou fans. Leo Chenal's on a rookie deal. Bolton is going to cost too much. And if you do keep Nick Bolton, that's going to really hurt your chances of trying to bring in a veteran left tackle. And listen, I see this a lot of Chiefs fans, whenever I ask, hey, should the Chiefs re-sign this guy or should they go after this guy in free agency? I always see people say, well, for the right price or if they're cheap. Folks, this is not a charitable service here. These players are all going to demand a lot of money. I mean, there are very, very few players in the NFL who demand less than what they could get, like Drew Tranquill. I mean, Drew Tranquill certainly could have gotten more money, I think. Hollywood Brown, I mean, he did say in his press conference last year that he got more money, more offers from other teams, but decided to come to Kansas City. Hopefully he's still willing to come back on a similar deal. I think the Chiefs really need that, especially with the Rashee Rice suspension kind of looming right now. We're anticipating that. And then when Rice comes back and hopefully everyone can stay healthy, you'll have the trio of Hollywood, Rice, and Worthy, which was all the hype we had last year. Unfortunately, we never saw that trio at all in any game for the Chiefs last year. Joshua says, who's replacing him? I mean, it's either going to be someone who you have on the depth chart right now, or you're going to have to draft someone. Again, you can't keep everyone. All these guys are going to cost you a lot of money, man. And that's what happens when you keep drafting so well. So do you have his replacement right now? No, Joshua, you don't, but you're probably going to have to wait and see who's going to be available in the draft. Maybe that's what your first round draft pick is going to be. Probably going to be a linebacker. Maybe it is Luther Burden. There are some rumors that he could drop. I don't think he will. Listen, there are all kinds of rumors of players potentially dropping or players who could be taken early unexpectedly. I mean, you see all of that today from scouts and teams, things that get leaked out. Smoke screen, I know, we don't hear that word as often, but I remember that was a really popular word when it came to draft rumors in the past. So we'll have to see how all of that goes in the coming weeks. We're going to take a quick break here and spend a moment to talk about my friends over at Fathead. Fathead has the best life-size wall graphics of your favorite players and team logos and has been going strong for almost 2 decades. Maybe you're looking to spice up your man cave where you watch all of your sports. Perhaps you want to add to your room where you have all of your sports memorabilia. You can get something that looks cool for your kid's bedroom. Or maybe you're a Swiftie and you want Taylor Swift's boyfriend as part of your celebrity wall. Fathead is the place to go, and if you're a Chiefs fan, you can get Fatheads of your favorite current and former Chiefs players such as Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, Derek Thomas, and more. For those of you watching on the live stream, look for my exclusive Fathead link in the comments right now. And for those listening to the audio version, look for my exclusive Fathead link in the podcast description. When you use my link, you will get free standard US shipping when you place an order on Fathead. When you use my link, you will get free standard US shipping when you place an order on Fathead. Use my exclusive Fathead link, get yourself some Chiefs Fathead swag, and take advantage of free shipping in the United States. So it just feels like we need a bunch of different confirmations about Travis Kelce coming back. So Andy Reid spoke in his press conference today. Now, Andy Reid spoke before Brett Veach did. And when Andy Reid was asked about Kelce, he basically said, take some time, get away, do what you got to do. Obviously, it's the offseason. Players, a lot of them going back to their hometowns, training here and there, traveling, having fun, all that good stuff. And I'm sure Travis Kelce certainly doing some of that as well. Oddly enough, Brett Veach, he spoke to the media right after Andy Reid and was asked a similar question about Kelce. And he basically was giving an answer that indicated Kelce was set to come back. Talked about how Kelce's fired up, wants to kind of right the ship, right the wrong from the way the season ended, and people were a little thrown off. Like, wait a minute, he's coming back? Is that what's being hinted at here? So we basically got that, and then there were some other sources here and there. Diana Rossini was saying that he's leaning close to coming back. And then Pat McAfee today, and this one was the home run confirmation here. McAfee said that he texted a source, quote unquote source. He was really texting Kelce. And basically got a text message from Kelce saying that Kelce is coming back, gonna try to get in the best shape of his life, which, certainly positive to hear. And Kelce, according to McAfee, added in the text that he had a real bad taste in his mouth with how he played in the last game. Obviously, there's that viral clip of him not really putting much effort while Patrick Mahomes kind of running around, trying to get out of the pocket, and then scrambles eventually, and then says, "I can't go out like that," with how many exclamation points that? 5? 5 exclamation points. So there you have it. He's expected to come back. Travis Kelce isn't even in the country right now. I did not know that, but I'll take your word for it. Not that it really matters where he is right now, as long as he's not getting into any trouble or isn't in any danger. No, I mean, who cares? But if you needed any more confirmation, the New Heights podcast basically put up a meme of Kelce, and it says, "Hey, I'm coming back." They were using a movie clip. I can't remember what the movie clip was for the life of me. Apologies. I don't even remember what it was. But that's not all. If you want one more piece of confirmation that Travis Kelce's coming back, the Chiefs basically confirmed it on their social media feed, saying that he's coming back for year 13, which is Taylor Swift's lucky number, by the way. Both Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes showed their excitement on Twitter about Kelce coming back. And by the way, one quick thing to go back to the Trey Smith thing, I forgot to mention this. Another reason why I'm pretty optimistic that, Veach obviously, he knows he has to. I mean, it is a must to bring back Trey Smith. But another reason I'm optimistic is Patrick Mahomes retweeted the NFL's tweet that Trey Smith was getting the franchise tag. I don't think Patrick Mahomes would retweet that if it was a bad thing. I know the franchise tag has that negative feel to it. It just comes with a negative connotation. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes would have retweeted that if it was a bad thing for the Chiefs. I remember last year when Chris Jones hinted that he signed a long-term deal, and then Patrick Mahomes responded to it and had it like a smiling emoji to go with it. And then 2 seconds later, we got the news from all the insiders that Chris Jones signed a long-term deal. It was a 5-year deal. I mean, Mahomes won't do any of those things unless he's certain that it's a done deal. And obviously the Chiefs front office keep him in the know with all of these things. So there's that. Yeah, Veach did do an interview where he basically said that Kelce was battling some kind of an illness. Didn't look like it after the game when he was talking to the media. But Veach made it clear that's not why they lost. Let's move on here and talk about the state of Missouri. This story has certainly, it's just basically gone off the rails suddenly after a really quiet 5 to 6 months. Within the last 7 days, the wheels on this story have been turning very, very quickly. Obviously, the state of Kansas wasted little time trying to get the wheels turning on this, as they were moving quickly to basically get legislation done and trying to put renderings out there to try to entice the Chiefs to come over to the state of Kansas. Obviously, the Star Bond, that's certainly been the biggest attraction and the biggest selling point for the Chiefs. Meanwhile, Sam McDowell of the Kansas City Star announced that there are 3 Missouri lawmakers, along with Mayor Quinton Lucas, with Quinton Lucas' help. They have been able to file a proposal to keep the Chiefs and the Royals in the state of Missouri. In fact, let me pull up the statement here. But before I read the statement, just kind of a recap of the last 7 days, because a lot has been happening lately. So it started off last week, and Kevin Keatsman, and I know a lot of people refuted him because they don't like him, but you're now hearing other people confirm that same report, came out saying that the Chiefs are all in on going to the Legends. That's where they want to move. The Chiefs, that is. And then Quinton Lucas pushed back against some of these rumors that were just out there, specifically pushing back against Keatsman. He was on Pete Mundo's show this morning. And by the way, big shout out to Pete Mundo. Big thanks to him coming on the podcast yesterday. Talked about a lot of great things, asked for his take and his prediction on the Chiefs. If you haven't checked that out, and do it pretty quickly, because like I said, the wheels are turning on this really fast. So news just seems to unfold day by day with all of this right now. But Mayor Quinton Lucas he got a little defensive on this whole thing, and Pete Mundo basically said, "Hey, this story, I mean, we want an answer. We've been speculating for too damn long on this." And he's right, we kind of have been, and we want answers. And the defense of Mayor Quinton Lucas, not that he needs it from me, he did say this morning on Pete's show that he expects something as early as today to come out. Well, what happened today? Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe met with the Royals, and I believe the Chiefs as well. And there were also legislators who were meeting in Jefferson City yesterday trying to talk about what they need to do to keep the Chiefs and the Royals. Missouri right now is working on a fourth quarter comeback. Ever since that vote failed on April the 2nd, almost 11 months ago, Missouri has been very, very quiet. In fact, they haven't even done anything really up until this week. And now we're starting to see Missouri move the football a little bit on this. And they have filed a proposal to keep the Chiefs and the Royals. I'll read you the statement here from Mayor Quinton Lucas. This came out about an hour ago. The statement reads, Mayor Quinton Lucas celebrated the introduction of Senate Bill 2986, which would authorize Missouri state support in connection with city incentives to retain and attract professional sports teams and entertainment venues under the Missouri Entertainment Facility Capital Assistance Program, or MEF CAP Act. And then here is a quote from Mayor Lucas. The Royals and the Chiefs are Kansas City's teams today and will remain Kansas City's teams for generations to come. I am proud to partner with Senator Barbara Washington, Democrat from Kansas City, Representative Sherry Gallick, Republican from Belton, Missouri, and Representative Mark Sharp, Democrat from Kansas City, on the Missouri Entertainment Facility Capital Assistance Program Act, or MEF CAP. Bipartisan legislation giving Missouri cities the tools we need to keep our professional sports franchises, attract new teams, that's interesting, and maintain world-class entertainment venues. He also went on to talk about some events the Chiefs have been able to bring in, such as Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Morgan Wallen, the FIFA World Cup, and I guess it mentions college bowl games and so much more. Well, what college bowl games have we had at Arrowhead? I don't recall that. I know the Big 12 championship game. I mean, I know that's been a thing now that there are more teams in the Big 12, but I don't believe they've been playing at Arrowhead. I mean, sure, yeah, KU played some games at Arrowhead because of their renovation in Lawrence, but I don't recall any college bowl games at Arrowhead, really. But I suppose with an indoor stadium, and I mentioned this the other day, college bowl games would certainly be able to you would be able to get some college bowl games, because let's be honest, you don't want to play any of these big important games outdoors in the cold. You want to play them indoors where you don't have to deal with inclement weather. The remainder of the press release reads: the balanced approach in legislation that responsibly unlocks public support exceeding current competitive offers elsewhere ensures taxpayers are protected while providing a transformative opportunity for Kansas City and communities across Missouri. The MEF CAP Act includes strong taxpayer protections by capping total public support for each project, and requiring private financial commitments to apply for state assistance. So obviously that'd be the Hunt family putting some money down and the state putting some money down as well. Kind of like what Kansas is trying to do with the Star bonds. Listen, my prediction has been all along that they'll stay in Missouri. Not for the same reasons Pete gave yesterday. I just don't think they feel like moving. I mean, listen, you're not moving. It's not like you're moving from one mansion to another, and you have to figure out how the hell you're going to move everything within that mansion. I mean, sure, people in their offices, but I'm sure they're going to get a lot of help from the Chiefs themselves. And so, cry me a river. I just don't know in general, like, how much do you really want to put into moving? Now, on the other side of it, the Chiefs, they're basically being gifted this stadium here by Kansas. The Chiefs would be the first professional sports team in the United States of America, and maybe in the entire world, that would turn down an offer like that. Now, the details on what Missouri did with the proposal, all of that's still fairly vague right now. I suppose we'll get some answers on this within the next 24 hours. I'm sure Sports Talk Radio is going to be all over this tomorrow. I'm sure Pete and Keatsman, in my opinion, on KCMO Talk Radio, they've done the best job covering this story. This is interesting. Now, I will say this, and I want to know from you guys. How do you guys feel? Do you, Yolanda, I see you're saying you have a feeling Missouri will keep both teams. I looked at the mayor's response on his social media, on Facebook and on X. Oh boy, it is a mixed bag. You've got half the people saying, yeah, let's go, Mayor Q, keep him in Missouri. You got people cheering him on. And then you have the other half saying it's too late. I don't think it's too late. I don't agree with that. But if you want to build a new stadium, you've got to get going on that very soon. I mean, what did Allegiant Stadium take? 4 years, I believe. And I think they put the finishing touches on it, right when the pandemic got pretty serious in early mid 2020. Not that I'm suggesting there will be a pandemic in the coming years, but if you're Kansas City and it's the year 2025, we're about to wrap up the second month of 2025. You've got to get this going soon. And there have been some rumors about the Chiefs possibly starting to break ground late this year. And I think that would be certainly a reasonable time to start. Lee says Casey was supposed to build an entertainment district area around the stadium years ago. Yeah, but here's my thing, Lee. Let's say you build that. You're talking like at the Truman Sports Complex or nearby it. Look, I'm just being honest. That whole area, I mean, there are some small neighborhoods surrounding the Truman Sports Complex. If you were to build an entertainment district, kind of like the Legends or what you have at PNL right across the street from the T-Mobile Center, at the time they built it, it was called the Sprint Center. How often will that thing be used, though? I mean, sure, you'll have it used a couple times a month during football season, but I don't think that's the ideal intent If you have it during baseball season, sure. I mean, it'll be used 6 to 7 times a week, and then it'll be quiet for a week or two, and then it'll be used up again for a week, maybe 2 consecutive weeks. I don't know if that's ideal, because when it's not in service, I mean, people aren't really doing anything at the Truman Sports Complex when there's nothing happening. Like right now, absolutely nothing's going on. But in the months of late March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, and more recently for the Chiefs all the way through January. Okay, I guess there's a lot going on, but that, especially during football season, it'll only be once a week. I mean, you already have a lot of people going to the Legends. I mean, that place is packed on the weekends. So it certainly makes sense. I don't know what the right move is. I listen, I think the Legends is a nice place to go. Do I think they do it? I can't say that for a fact 100%. I keep going back and forth on this. I really do. I mean, listen, that area, when you're driving on 435 or I-70, I mean, I-70, you kind of see some things along the way, especially if you're coming from downtown. But it really, I mean, like if you're coming from 435 south and you're heading north, you see the KMBC building. I don't know, maybe the trees have gotten too tall to the point where you can't see it anymore. But then it's just right there on a random intersection on the highway with I-70. You just take that exit. I mean, there's really not a lot. So when you go to the Arrowhead, the stadium, and depending where you sit, or if you're at the skybox that they built last time they did renovations, you can actually see downtown from there. I mean, there's nothing, which is far away though. There's nothing surrounding the Truman Sports Complex. That area really is a bunch of nothing burgers. There really isn't much to do. Yeah, I mean, they have had some events there. The barbecue competition. They've tried to bring in a few concerts here and there during the summer, during early parts of football season when the Chiefs are not in town. Listen, I've never been to a concert at Arrowhead before, and probably never will, and nor have any interest. But who really? Don't get me wrong. If you're seeing your favorite musician, I'm sure it's a damn good time. But at the same time, is it really that fun when you're dealing with the sweltering heat in the Midwest, even at nighttime? I mean, July and August, the weather is not that great outdoors. It's really not. Really not. If you have it indoors, hey, it's ideal. I know not as many seats, potentially. It also depends how they build it. If they build it similar to Jerry's World, I mean, hey, that'd be nice. But those kinds of details remain to be seen right now. But at the moment, the big news that came out earlier this evening, the state of Missouri has filed a proposal to keep the Chiefs and the Royals, and also an attempt to bring in potentially more professional sports teams, such as an NBA and an NHL team. Actually, the Kelce brothers on their podcast, they had the Kachuk brothers from Team USA on, and they were, after interviewing them, they kind of talked about a potential NHL team. Jason Kelce was really pushing for that in Kansas City. Hell yeah, sign me up for that one. We're going to take a quick time out here and talk about my friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is where I go to for my ticketing needs, whether it's sports, concerts, any event that is available on SeatGeek. That is where I get my tickets. The nice part about SeatGeek is when you go through an event and look at the ticket prices, if there's a red dot, that means it is overpriced for that ticket. If there's a green dot, that means you're paying a great price for that ticket. SeatGeek keeps it nice and honest, and on top of that, if you're a new SeatGeek customer, you can put in my promo code FARZINE and save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and new customers at checkout can put in my promo code FARZINE for $20 off their first order from SeatGeek. All right, this has certainly been a very busy show, not as long as yesterday's show. But my God, we have had a lot of news in the last 3 days, 3 straight days of the Chiefs Zone podcast. You're welcome, everyone. I mean, a lot of you guys have been asking for more podcasts. I've been wanting to do fewer podcasts, but That's just the way the news cycle goes for you sometimes. That's the way. That's what you should sign up for when you do this stuff. A couple things before we get out of here. A couple of notes in and around the NFL. Harrison Butker was at the White House today meeting with President Donald Trump. The reason for his visit is unknown. There were a lot of people saying, why is a Super Bowl loser there? Listen, I think we all know Harrison Butker, where he leans politically. Obviously, this fired up a lot of people. This, made some people fall in love more with Butker. This made people hate Butker more. Here's my thing, man. Why do we care so much about someone else's politics? You all have your own opinions. I have my opinions. I have my stances. You all have your stances. Whether it's Harrison Butker, Colin Kaepernick, Patrick Mahomes, anyway, Tom Brady, LeBron James, anyone and everyone, people are allowed to have their stance. People are allowed to do what they want. They have the right to do so. I don't get why people get fed up over someone else's opinion. And I get political tensions are higher today than they've ever been, but man, why do we worry so much about other people's political stances or why they're at the White House? Listen, I'd like to know why he was at the White House, but I'm not, all fired up and worked up about it like some of you guys are. Like, let's relax a little bit. Let's take a deep breath. There are other things to worry about in our society. Just relax a bit. Listen, I think it's cool anytime there's a Chiefs player that's in a spotlight like this. That's all I was trying to do. People are saying, "Oh, Farzin, you're trying to rile people up." I'm not trying to do anything. If someone's riled up, that's their problem. I don't. People are always like taking issue with me. Farzin, why are you allowing these mean comments? Man, I get mean comments every now and then. I don't read the comments as much as I used to before. I don't care what people say about me. So why do you think I care about mean things said about other people? Like, come on, get over yourselves. Speaking of mean things being said, John Gruden, he had some mean things to say a while back in some emails that were leaked, included racist and homophobic comments. This led to him being forced to resign as the head coach of the Raiders. This also made the Tampa Bay Buccaneers remove Gruden from the Ring of Honor in 2021, following all of these reports in these leaked emails. Today, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers announced that they have decided to reinstate John Gruden back into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor. Look, here's my thing. I don't want to turn this into like a cancel culture thing because I know that's a thing. I know it's a big deal in our society today. It's a word that gets thrown out there a lot today. Listen, I don't like to use that term cancel culture. I think consequence culture is a more appropriate and more fitting. And listen, I know obviously people are only going to be in favor of cancel culture if it's against someone they disagree with. Come on, both sides are guilty of it. But let me say this. Why put him back in the Ring of Honor? And look, if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. This does not impact me. I don't care if they leave John Gruden in the Ring of Honor or they decided to keep him out of there. But what was the point of ever removing him if you're going to add him back 4 years later? And listen, I get it. I think with a lot of things in our society today, someone will do something or say something that was out of line. Usually it's saying something controversial that gets people in hot water. It gets them in trouble. They get let go of their big job on a big platform. And then, enough time passes, they end up finding work later on. They get back in it, kind of like Kevin Keatsman. I guess he's a good example, I suppose. Listen, again, if you're the Buccaneers, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. But what was the purpose of removing him if you're going to add him back 4 years later? Is that one of those things where, enough time has passed? I don't know, man. I don't know. It just did not make any sense to me that the Buccaneers went about it that way. Just didn't make any sense to me. A couple other things I want to get into here. This one is kind of a funny one. Reporter beef. You guys love it when two people in the media clash. Well, today, or yesterday rather, word got out that Fox Sports' Jordan Schultz and NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, they clashed at a Starbucks, which is funny because Jordan Schultz's father, I guess, is the founder of Starbucks or owns Starbucks, something along those lines. And I guess the joke around was, hey, Schultz, telling Rappaport, get out of my dad's coffee shop or something like that. But I don't know. So what is the conflict between Schultz and Rappaport? Where Jordan Schultz, he put out a report, and I'm trying to pull it up here just so I have it correctly, but he put out a report that Tom Brady was hosting Matthew Stafford at a ski resort in Montana. And obviously the news comes with Matthew Stafford expected to be traded from the Rams and obviously the Raiders, which Brady is a minority owner in. He is certainly trying to recruit a good quarterback to come to the Raiders. And then Rappaport, I guess, refuted that by saying that they simply ran into each other at the ski resort. And by the way, Tom Brady has a home in Montana, so to be clear here, Schultz was saying that Stafford was visiting Tom Brady in his home. Rappaport is refuting that, saying that they both ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana. Schultz kind of pushed back against that on Twitter and said, yeah, if you think it's a coincidence, I've got a bridge or an island to sell you. I don't remember exactly what he said. And then the two ran into each other at a Starbucks at the NFL Combine. Schultz, according to eyewitnesses, said, if you have anything to say to me, say it to my effing face. If this continues, we're going to have an effing problem. Rappaport then asked Schultz to step back, to which the latter, Schultz, once again said, if this happens again, we're going to have an effing problem. Boy, talk about confrontation there. I don't know who would win that fight, but I suppose that could be the co-main event to John Rocker and Pat Mahomes Sr., which apparently is not happening anymore. But nonetheless here, as far as this goes, I mean, listen, these kinds of things happen where one reporter gets information and another reporter gets more additional details that might refute another person's report here. And we've seen this in the past. I think, who was the guy that used to be with CBS Sports? Jason La Canfora. He kind of clashed with Adam Schefter at one point over accuracy over a report. So you kind of see it from time to time. It kind of reminds me of, gosh, it was about 16, 17 years ago when 610 and 810 clash. 810 would act like 610 never existed, whereas 610, they would just fire shots nonstop at 810. And I have to say, it was quite interesting. Remember Chris and Cowboy? Oddly enough, Chris actually ended up working at 810 years later. And then Nick Wright, who everyone knows, man, I'd be very curious to know the people that know Nick Wright now. I'd be very curious to know what they thought of Nick Wright and kind of how he handled the 810 success. Dude, the people at 810 hated Nick because he destroyed them in the ratings. That's why Nick is where he is today. But neither here nor there. It is interesting. It is interesting to say the least when it comes to I guess the fight between Schultz and Rappaport. They both have a sense of humor about it, though. Schultz is kind of joking about it online. Rappaport appeared briefly on Pat McAfee's show, and they were doing the Rocky theme song. They're like, oh, there was a fight that took place. And by the way, a lot of reporters, I saw Schefter and several other reporters, because a lot of people drink coffee. I don't. I know, I'm weird. They were taking pictures of the same Starbucks they were at. They were like, oh, I got my head on a swivel here. I'm watching for my own back here. It's like, oh, everyone's having a lot of fun with this. Some breaking news that came out overnight. Two-time Oscar Award winner Gene Hackman passed away at the age of 95. His wife and his dog also were found deceased at their home. which is under investigation right now. So far, the early report is that there was no foul play involved, but a very sad situation here where Hackman, and by the way, I think a lot of you guys listening know who Hackman is. If you're a younger person, you probably have heard about the story by now, but you might not be familiar with the movie Hoosiers. If you're a younger listener here, I'm telling you right now, if you have not seen Hoosiers, go see it. I mean, if you're over the age of 16, surely you've seen Hoosiers by now. I would be shocked if you haven't. It is a classic basketball movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's never too late. I don't know if it's available on any streaming platforms, but it is. Yeah. Some people are wondering if there was any kind of carbon monoxide in there. Just a very sad situation involving Gene Hackman and his family, all and his wife and his dog found dead in their home, and that is under investigation right now. Hey, some exciting news here for Kansas City in late April. You have PBR. They're going to be taking place late April, and then after that, you've got UFC Fight Night coming to Kansas City. Got Khalil Roundtree fighting. One of my favorite fighters. Glad to see he has rose in the ranks, and that could be a massive #1 contenders fight. And then 2 days after that, WWE Monday Night Raw will be in Kansas City. Obviously, they had Patrick Mahomes. They also had Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey. They were all part of the show last year on Raw. So I'd be very curious to see if they were to make that happen again. I know Triple H, who is a big part of the WWE now, he actually tweeted and said, hey, you're more than welcome back anytime. So it would not surprise me if the Chiefs were going to try to work in any of the WWE would try to work in any of the Chiefs into their April 28th show. Very excited to see that in late April in Kansas City. You got PBR, you got the UFC, and WWE are all owned by TKO corporations. They will all be in Kansas City at T-Mobile Center in late April. All right. Well, I'll tell you this much. There is not going to be a podcast tomorrow because tomorrow we're doing the Red Friday live chat, regardless of what breaking news comes out. Hey, thank you all. If you have been listening to the entirety of all 3 of these podcasts, wow, you are awesome. Thank you all. I understand not everyone listens to the entirety of the podcast. I understand, especially if you tune in live. Some of you guys just might tune in for part of the podcast, and I certainly understand that as well. If you missed any of the podcasts, for those of you watching and listening live, the archive versions will all be available shortly on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere where you can download and listen to a podcast. They will all be available shortly. Thank you all for the views, the interactions, all of that stuff. It's the off season, but we're still going strong with the podcast, the live streams, the content, all of that stuff. So thank you all so much. Please, if you guys haven't had a chance already, make sure you're sharing the reels, the videos that we put out there, the short clips that we put out there. That really does help our social media grow on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. It really does help out a lot. So please do so if you haven't already. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you for listening to the 3rd straight episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I will talk to you all tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock Central Time for the Red Friday live chat. Bring your questions. I'll talk to you all then. Take care.